And don't forget, you can watch CNN Live on your computer while you're at work. Head to CNN.com/live. All right, let's talk about Ron Paul. Remember him? Maybe you haven't heard his name for a while. But the Republican candidate still, he's got an ace up his sleeve, a chance to really mess with Mitt Romney's head at the Republican National Convention. I want to bring in Paul Steinhauser, joins us from D.C. to talk a little bit about this. Explain to our viewers exactly the kind of influence that he still has now.
He is the last man standing, I guess you could say, Suzanne. Newt Gingrich gone, Rick Santorum gone, both of them suspending their campaigns. But Ron Paul, the longtime congressman from Texas, he continues on. I mean, listen, we know it is over. Mitt Romney is the presumptive GOP nominee. He will win the nomination officially in Tampa for the Republican convention. But Ron Paul continues to campaign out there. And over the weekend, Suzanne, this is fascinating. In 2 states, Nevada and in Maine, they had their state conventions. They've earlier held their caucuses, but they had their state conventions. And Ron Paul won the majority of convention delegates in both of these states. And that is interesting and troublesome, I guess, for the Romney campaign. Listen, Ron Paul's got devoted, energetic, enthusiastic supporters, and they really crowded these 2 state conventions. And now Ron Paul has won the majority. That may be contested by the Romney campaign. Stay tuned on that one. But, you know, Ron Paul's going to have, no doubt about it, he's going to have some influence at the Tampa convention, Suzanne.
Paul, talk a little bit about that influence, because on the one hand, you look at this and it could disrupt things at the convention. But on the other hand, maybe it's just changing the agenda, if you will, when you see all those Ron Paul signs, those supporters who are going to be out there in those numbers. Perhaps Romney will adjust his agenda and talk about some of the issues that Ron Paul is interested in.
And that's really what Ron Paul is all about. You know, I think his campaign is less a campaign for the White House and more of a campaign for a movement to really, you know, and his movement, we've seen it. He's proselytized this over and over again. A smaller federal government, less taxes, less government spending, more of a libertarian approach to things. And yeah, even though Mitt Romney won over 50% of the vote in those Nevada caucuses back in early February, Ron Paul will now have a majority of the delegates out of Nevada unless things are overturned. But they're going to have to vote for Mitt Romney, at least on the first ballot. I guess, you know, I talked to some Ron Paul advisors, and maybe there's a little bit of hope that this thing will go past the first ballot. It's not. But Ron Paul will have some influence at that convention. He will have a speaking role. And one other thing to look at. Tomorrow we've got primaries in 3 states, right. Indiana, Nevada, right in North Carolina, and West Virginia. It's over for the nomination, but look at the vote totals Ron Paul gets, and if it's higher than the 15 or 16% he's been averaging, that'll be interesting, Suzanne.
And what about the independents here? Ron Paul really does have the possibility of attracting some of those independents and holding on to them. Maybe they're not even going to be supporting Romney because they are Ron Paul supporters.
That's a good point, too, and that's why I think you're really going to want to see Mitt Romney have good relations with the Paul camp, because Romney's main objective now is going up against President Obama in November, of course, obviously, and he wants his house unified. And that's why I think you're going to have to see some kind of relationship between the Romney and the Ron Paul camp. One other thing out there, Rand Paul, Ron Paul's son, of course, the freshman senator from Kentucky. Who knows what his future is? Who knows if, you know, Mitt Romney does not win in November, if Rand Paul will make his own bid, follow in his father's footsteps, make his own bid for the White House in 2016. Stay tuned on this one, Suzanne.
All right, staying tuned as always, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you.
Fortune magazine releasing its